Okay. So VG is on, but it's just saying she's still trying to connect her audio to the meeting, so I don't know if she's fully on with us. I don't know. We get started and hopefully she can.
Can she hear us?
Oh, maybe.
Yes, sorry.
Oh.
I didn't realize you had started it.
Welcome. Thank you. Sorry for the delay. No, it's all right.
Let's wait a minute.
Here? Well, yeah, you're right.
You are in order, 6:06. I'll do roll call. Eric Hinckley,
Here.
Kim Rada,
Here.
Dave Nagel,
Here.
Leanne Minky,
Here.
Maureen Lyons,
Here.
and Virginia Ramos Rios is online.
Here.
You have a quorum, and you are welcome to start. First item. Oh, Lisa's not.
Yeah.
Remember, I didn't announce Lisa or Diane, sorry. Any public comment? And there was no public on the Zoom, so everyone's aware. No? Okay, your first order of business is to appoint a chairperson.
Well, I want to ask someone if they're willing to serve. Hello, Eric.
She was making some direct eye contact. She wasn't even gonna ask.
See that. Oh, you're asking me.
Will you
Um,
serve as chairperson?
I could, the only caveat I would say is there was, when I was appointed, there was a little bit of reticence on some council members just because I work for the town and they didn't want any kind of potential conflict. And I agree with that. I mean, I don't want it perceived as, oh, I'm pushing somebody else's agenda. So I don't know if that's.
Well,
I don't know the legality. I don't think that would make a difference. I mean, we're library members, so we certainly
have an
have a
agenda.
different.
I understand that.
You know, everybody, we have council members representing, you know, that have
I understand.
their own,
I
What
think
was
if
the-
you had to.
I mean, they
kind
have
of-
caucuses behind them, talk about pressure.
I mean, I would say you know when you would have to
To
recuse
recuse
yourself.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I'm perfectly fine with that.
I have no problem with it.
No, I don't either. The only question I might have is if you would have to recuse yourself, do we need to also appoint
A vice
a
chair.
vice chair?
I think that's
It's not a
wise.
bad idea.
Well, should we do the chair first?
Yeah, let's do the chair first. So
I make a motion to nominate Eric as our chair.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you can take over the meeting.
Or, in it's the case of recusing and whatever, I don't do it.
And again, it may not really come up, but just in case, we just. don't want to-
Perhaps, BG being not affiliated with any of these as vice would then be able to serve. Would you be willing, BG?
Yeah, I'm willing.
Okay. I'll make a motion to have BG be our vice chair.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Problem.
Don't want to make it look like we're pushing any agendas.
So we have the motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good. All right, discussion of the library renovation project and the future recommendation town council. I know we've discussed about trying to get this to council to get it on a referendum for this year. We're probably really close to the edge of when we need to present, and then I saw some other email traffic that there may be, you wanna wait, and
Yeah, the
so.
library board voted to hold off until the 2025 election. So that will give us time to refine the presentation. We have, we're working with our consultant and architect. They're aware of this. We have a second, actually, they presented a revision to us.
This is my copy, but want me to pass it around just if you want to take a quick look at
If
it?
you want. That the board did not vote on. I mean, part
No,
of
but
it was to
it's
put it
getting
aside.
cleaner. And it's getting closer to a presentation, but we also have to deal, like, if we want to go for the grant, we've got to have the structural engineer
Yeah.
aspect of it, which we
And
have
also
gotten
the-
any, further on.
The public relations aspect. So there's a lot of things on the table. We need to have a structural engineer do an assessment of the old building, which we didn't realize was needed when we filled out the grant last year. I spoke with Sonia Richmond, and we missed the boat for the grant this year.
Yep.
However, and I have to get in touch with her. Apparently the company that she works for was hiring some new people. One of which is like a PR person that would help us, she said, could offer us help with the library, public relations aspect and the lobbying aspect. Once we have our,
Yeah, once you get closer,
our
yeah.
presentation. So we have to have the refined presentation, the structural engineer piece and have that done. Pursue the grant, which would be, July?
Yeah.
When would the next grant application be?
Next cycle, I
July,
think, yeah,
August.
they usually close
Yeah.
around this time.
For the,
Or April, May,
the state grant,
state library grant.
I think the request to do the application's the end of June.
Yeah.
And then you have the summer to
Interesting.
do everything. And then it has to be in, I think, towards the end of
Yeah.
August.
And
There are classes you have to
representatives-
take earlier in the year though,
You
to be
take-
able
you have
to.
have to
attend,
take a course.
course in April, and then they'll,
Well,
let me
members
fill
of the
out
board have been
application.
keeping up on that, so we're attending the webinars and the classes, so we're qualified. But the structural engineering is what
It's
made
not
us
this.
stumble last.
The last time. So when I spoke with Sonia, she said we're probably, I mean, the existing application, which will not change that much.
We were pretty close to being done.
I thought we were closer than she said about 60%. I think it may be.
Well, I think maybe
Maybe
some of the
more than
numbers
that.
have to be
Yeah.
shifted, like the.
Yeah,
circulation
there's some
numbers.
statistics perhaps, but, so we have work to do, but we're closer than we were even 2 months ago. So we'll be working with our consultants, we will be working with Sonia, we're gonna work with, in fact, Eric, did you mention that you might be able to
So,
offer names for structural
so the
engineering?
town has, on-call architect services for 3 different firms, and they all have structural engineers. They are not currently included in their pricing, so we could reach out to them and get pricing to evaluate this.
We would have to get the wording again from the grant committee, exactly what they're looking for, but I don't think it will have changed from the last.
Yeah, if you get me something of what the grant requires from the structural engineer,
Yeah.
that form or whatever, just so we can
Yeah.
put that out and we can get a couple of quotes
Right, I
and see, and we still have funding of X amount of dollars for
think we have some monies left.
We have some money
30,000 or
left,
something,
but,
yeah,
and some of
We
that
use some.
monies will
yes, that's what I thought.
have to
We did
be
use some of it.
allocated to our consultants.
But I think we have, I'm guessing that we would have enough for the structural engineer to do that study.
What did we figure last year, maybe?
We had about 35, but then we just.
No,
took
but
a
for
bunch
the
out.
structural
I
engineer,
thought it was 8.
8,000, it was
Thought
that
it was
high?
8. So again, given inflation and whatever the quotes come in at. But that would give us the information for the grant that we can do at the same time as the way the library board was looking at it. We tried to base ourselves on previous building projects as they were going forward to push for referendum. And the idea being that we don't want to play this right up to the wire game that we've been playing here.
Yeah.
No.
So with the library giving, you know, again, wearing two hats here, I think this committee has to give deadlines to the library to therefore say, we need this by such and such a
Right.
time. But the time I was kind of backing up from previous building committee experiences, and you all have them, so you can speak to it as well. I would think that the latest we'd want to go to town council is after the first of the year with a presentation, because you want to have that full buildup to get it public hearings, whatever, and then start lobbying for the referendum. When going back to experience I had when I was on the 6 schools in the early 2000s, Ernie Perlini was gangbusters, so he was the driving force behind all of this. But he got us working so that we were driving for 6 schools
You
at
had
the
a
same
schedule.
time. But we had a schedule so that by January and February, we were primarily dealing with PR.
So that, you know, again, that's our goal, that we have everything ready for the council, well, for Lark to give to the council says. And then we have, the next steps would be the lobbying, the PR, and leading up to the election.
And it would be better to do it before the council gets anywhere near a budget.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Your
May-
budget, what are you
What is
starting
that?
at? That March?
January to-
After the budget's
Right,
over.
right. So if we were to say that the library has to have submission to this committee by, say, January,
Mhm.
that gives the library a definite time frame they have to work with it. And it's still a relatively good amount of time to get all our ducks in a row, to get the structural engineering, the whole thing. And the structural engineering doesn't have to happen for this, but at least for the grant process, we
Well,
can
for
be
the
in
grant
process.
process.
So I that would be my recommendation.
Well, and heaven forbid, there's an issue that the structural engineer finds, then our architect would need to know that.
But it is a case of, one of the things that has concerned me about Lark has been sitting dormant for so long. And I really wanted us to get up and going, but I would hate to jump the gun and rush this and make it all just not work.
Yeah, the library decision was unanimous. You know, we all agreed that it was more prudent to wait. And
So
Kim and Dave can attest to that.
I mean, just personally, I think that was the right decision, because now this gives you the time to do everything that you've just discussed.
is there a lot of tweaking left to do on this final plan that you guys are
Well,
thinking about? I mean, I know everybody has their thoughts and dreams of what they want to see,
right,
but
you know, I think, and this is just my opinion, I think we have a good plan.
Yeah,
I
I think
think
what we have in there is a pretty
Is a very solid plan. There are some naysayers on the board. But you're always going to get that. You're never gonna have 100%, I don't think,
If I could
unless.
speak, I think the board's feeling wasn't so much that we had a long way to go on the plan and the vision,
Mhm.
but we didn't have the time to build consensus and notify the town that this is coming up for a vote. And I think the overwhelming push for the library board members to say it makes sense to postpone the referendum until next year is so that we could not only have this, I think this is very close to something that we can present and get behind, but that we would have the time to advertise and educate the public
Right.
that was gonna vote, that, hey, this is, you know that library renovation we've been talking about for 25 years? This is the year.
Yeah.
This is what we have. This is why we're doing it. This is how we're doing it, and go through that. And we felt that trying to get on the referendum this year would be too much buttoning down all the things here, and we wouldn't have enough time to really educate the people that we were trying to, encourage to come out to vote on this. So then what's the point to rush that? So
And
that's really what it was. Not that we have too many concerns about this. You can always tweak it, but in the end, whatever we present is conceptual.
Right.
So
I
the
just
thought
thought it
was,
is-
we have a very good idea and overview of what we need. Yes, we can tweak that. You know, it's kind of like your thesis, you know, you can tweak it right up until the time you hand it in, right?
Yeah, once
but-
it goes to council referendum, you know, we're,
Right, and what our
Right,
concern
and then
was
the
that
other
as a
building
board,
committee-
not only did we want time to finish this and do whatever tweaks and get all of the piece parts that we needed in a row to present to you so that you could present to town council in a timely manner. We felt that that was rushed, and we felt that it also meant that if everybody was on board, that we wouldn't have enough time to educate the public as to what we were doing and why we were doing it. And that's the overwhelming reason why we wanted to wait. We wanted to make sure that the public knew what was going on. You know, it's a big
And-
ticket item, what's happening, what's going on.
Another
what's happening.
issue that
We didn't want to rush it through in the summertime when no one's paying attention.
I thought that because it was a presidential election, it was a good time to present a referendum because of the voter turnout is heavier at that time. But some experts have enlightened me saying that it's probably not the best time, best election to present something like that, that we'd be better off during a municipal election.
and Lauren, what did you say about I know we had a discussion and couldn't let Lauren in last time, about the actual vote. Is it a straight majority of, to pass on the referendum, or is it some other number of? Or-
No, I believe this is just a straight
Okay,
majority. It's
okay.
not one that requires, like, for instance, a
Majority
charter
of the votes
requires
casted.
at least 15%
Right,
of voter
I just want-
turnout. And a majority of the votes cast of at least 15% of voter
Okay, but
turnout,
I just wanted to
but
see,
that's not,
throw the
But in a
parameter.
referendum, it's just majority.
yeah,
And the nature of what is
Of who
presented
voted,
is a
right?
yes or no.
Of who
vote.
voted.
yes.
So if 5,000 people vote,
It's a
you need,
half plus one, yeah.
yeah, 2501.
I just wanted to
Well, I
confirm
think it might be easier to sell, right? I mean, I think your experts probably are right and consider that people's focus. They don't even look at some of the other questions.
Well, in this, especially this election, I think it's.
Well,
gonna be a
I think
little-
their focus would be on the national versus even, I know, sometimes people forget about the referendum, even though you can remind them different ways from Sunday
Right.
to look elsewhere on the
And some
ballot.
people won't vote on it anyway, even
Yeah,
if they're, you know, so.
And you know, anybody who's presenting a referendum, you really need to do your education and PR so well, because what it boils down to is a yes or no. You know.
And you've got more than a year now to do that.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I know you were very cognizant of was the time frame when, and kind of starting back from the date of the referendum, when does it have to go to the Secretary of State?
Right.
So that, I think, is always good to keep in mind so that we've got that calendar.
If
And
we've-
you, and you felt that this time around leading up to this.
But if
So
we,
you-
if we aim for something like a January, which is before you really hit your budget
Mhm.
season.
Yeah.
And as council, so we have your attention versus you have other things on your plate. I mean, you have other things on your plate all the
Well,
time, but.
Or they have every night taken up with meetings
Right, and they have
already.
meetings all over the place, so we can have a little bit more focus on our goals.
Mhm.
And it also then leaves us with plenty of time to
Get the word
educate the
out.
public. And I don't need to, I'm not getting political here, but if you're on Facebook, of course, all those forums are blowing up about different things. One of the things that people have been concerned about various things going on in town is that they didn't know things were happening and whatever else. So I think educating people is only going to help us as to why we're
And you,
doing
and you'll have a
things.
lot of opportunities over this next year. to do that.
Exactly. So I don't want anybody to think we're trying to force something down somebody's throat or anything like that.
And if
We
we
want it
get
to be welcomed by the
approval
community.
in January or February,
Well,
I think your target, you know, you get this thing after the first of the year, we get everything we need,
Mhm.
and we
go to the
look
council.
for the first meeting in January, or we get a
Mhm.
January meeting and just get the presentation done. They can hold an additional public hearing if they choose to keep it open into February, and then close it up, and then do,
But then it's
and-
out in the public.
Right, and then you have that buffer of time in there, you're not right up
Mhm.
against the wall. with those drop dead time dates, and they would have time to structure the referendum, get it to the Secretary of State, get it on the ballot, if that's the choose. to
And
do.
that gives the library the time to make sure that our grant application is properly done and everything else. So, I think it's prudent personally. But, again, the direction has to come from this committee for dates for the library. And I will speak from experience. I think that the particular body works best if given deadlines.
Doesn't everybody?
Well, yeah.
There would be
no reason, that anything would have to come before TPC or conservation.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yes.
need an 824, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's that conundrum.
already
that
have-
does-
well,
does-
technically,
Yeah, 'cause
private
it is a
has to-
town.
We're a
It's-
private.
Yeah.
We're
Quasi.
but it-
We get into mess, it's happened with the parking
That's
lot.
why I'm raising it.
So that's
because
one of the
something
reasons,
else
and
to
that's
con- to
another
consider
reason to
keep
come
it
in
that
early,
timeframe.
to make sure that we're not, because what we found with the parking lot, things that were going to happen in the parking lot that the town was going to do technically doesn't work for private entities. So we had to get waivers for the Parks and Rec to do certain plantings, because before that, we had all sorts of botanical requirements and drainage issues and things like that, and certain kinds of plants that the town doesn't have to do, but private entities do. So those are the kind of things that we, that would give us time.
So we could do. Do you think should they have the 8-24 in hand before they present to council?
No, because the council is who sends it to 824.
Right, okay,
So,
that's fine.
yeah, you would present it to the council as
And
a
what is the
business.
824
So
then?
basically it has to get,
And
it's, council refers it to planning and zoning to make sure that this meets whatever requirement, you know, it's town property and.
If
We know,
it
this is,
complies with
this is
plan
the
of
thing.
conservation and
with-
development.
It's private property, but it's
It's
publicly.
quasi, yeah, so we may need an opinion from the town attorney
Mhm.
on how to best go about this, and we can try and work with Mr. Griffith on that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it will have to go.
Right,
We need to see
Before
what
it
they're
goes,
saying before, no
Basically,
matter
send
what we
it
think.
TBD,
anyway.
yeah, it's fine, and they just send it back to council and we agree, and then either,
So again, another reason for having it in council's hands.
I'm thinking that we have them get it to us by January 6th, which is the Monday after New Year's.
Okay.
And then council, I think, meets the 14th and 28th roughly,
Yeah, second and fourth.
yeah. So that would give us, 2 weeks of, a couple weeks, we would have a chance to review it before it went to council.
So it goes to Lark on the 6th, the final.
I think it
So
comes
we
back
would
down.
have to have all our ducks in a row
That's what I
from
would
our
think.
standpoint for our December meeting.
What are those ducks? Right, we want to
Well-
name those ducks.
Yeah, well, the ducks are gonna have to be the refined program.
A finished
My report.
presentation.
With a cost
With a-
estimate
yeah,
and the presentation.
And the presentation. Cause that's gotta be ready to show on whatever council date we get. As well.
Any grants that we might have. See, that's the other thing is, we're not gonna know about the state grant until this time.
Right.
No,
No,
but there
but
may
it can-
be other
but that
grants,
can
but,
run in a parallel
but
course.
that also
But
has
we
to
could-
do with our lobbying and our, once it's approved by the council, I'm so optimistic. Then, you explore all these other options and then go back to the council and say, oh, this one's giving us 2 million and we could get something else from somebody else, whatever. Sonia seems to think there's more than just one avenue for grant money.
And you never really know
Until you get there.
until you get
Right.
there. Something can be promised even by the state, but you don't
And-
know unless the legislature passes.
So that might be what the library should do, is list the grant applications that are in process.
Right.
Yeah, the
If
ones,
indeed
you've got one
you
going for
intend on
3,000,
applying for.
You don't know if you're gonna get the $3,000, you don't know if you're gonna get the $30,000, but these are all the grant applications that are in process.
And that should
maybe
be included in the
timelines for
presentation.
decisions.
Right.
And the amount stays the amount.
Right,
once
exactly.
It's gone to council, no matter whether
Right.
more grants are gotten or
Right.
whatever
Exactly,
the process
so,
is.
if we
The
get.
dollar amount has to stay the dollar. amount.
But that's the final
That's all
cost. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
The
You
council
can't tweak
approves
that. amount
either
as far as
what
I
we
know.
have presented, our cost estimate, or says you know, trim it by X amount of dollars. or
Because they're
whatever.
really voting on the amount of money.
That's right, yes.
Mhm.
If they want money,
You
they're
wanna
voting
spend
on.
X to do Y, is what the vote
Because if
is.
none of the grants come through, that's your cost.
Right,
You're gonna get.
exactly.
Right, and that's what it is, and then we just.
And, you know, again, if it does pass, the permanent building committee will have their little chewing on it and then
Oh,
they're
yeah,
gonna
and-
massage
and
it.
That whole thing could change dramatically. I'm sure it will, actually, but at least it has the concepts of what is desired. So,
Well, you know, not to be simplistic, but let's just hope that everybody's on board with a library expansion.
Well,
at the
I
top
mean,
of
I
the
think we're
building
gonna have to
and then
sell. it.
drill,
I mean,
you know.
there are a lot of things. There are people in this town, and I remember talking to one particular past town manager a couple of them ago, who said, nobody reads books anymore when we would go to budget. And I said, everybody does everything electronic. And I said, no, that's not the case. And the library isn't just about books on the shelf. We have to educate people about what the library is. But that will be our job.
Yeah. We had a mayor in our history who said, why go to the library? You could go to Borders. At a council meeting.
Could we let the record show that Borders is out of business, but the library is not? Could we just slip that in?
And look what happened to Borders.
Just saying.
Everybody has an opinion.
Right.
Yeah, so we really will, we're going to have to educate the public, but if we do this, so if we shoot for the sixth, if Lark gives that to the library committee as the sixth, that means the library has to have everything ready for their December meeting so that it can be voted on and put forward.
Okay, and what I'm saying is very easy to walk out of this meeting and know exactly what we need to do, and then come Tuesday, we're like, what?
Full presentation, we have to have the presentation to put forward and have our
Right.
advisors in place. Any kind of grants that we're applying for, so we'll have to research with Sonia as to what potentially we could have. We have to have the structural engineer thing
Oh, I
taken
don't-
care of.
I don't know if we need, would be nice to have it, but that's for the
I know,
grant.
but
not-
I
but
think
the
it's
structural
crazy
engineer,
not to
I
have
think we
that.
should have that done because the question could be asked by, I mean, if a grant is asking for us, I don't know that TPZ won't ask us for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Somebody
they're
on the
probably not
council
gonna,
may ask.
That's right, so
I
I
mean,
mean,
we
I
don't
think
know what questions are gonna come up
we'd
by
rather have the
council.
information ahead of time rather than we have to go back and look.
right, because you could have there are members of the public and they're like, well, did you even get a structural analysis done or something like that? At least you'd be able to say,
Okay, and
hey,
here's another thing, yeah, we got a structural analysis done, and it says that our pools are leaking and we need to replace them. Right.
What?
that's its own animal.
Yeah, so, sorry for that slightly, but it could be that
That's
something is
my next
identified
line.
in the structural analysis that needs to be remediated.
And also, but if
And that would be good to know as you go through.
and it can be addressed, they can modify the plans
Right.
accordingly if there's something had to be done there.
Right.
Because right now, we are basing the conceptual on the old library being part and parcel of that. If something is found that it's just not gonna
Right,
work,
and not
then the
changing,
whole thing
and
has
not
to be-
changing the load in that area, that's the other
Right,
bigger thing, we're not suddenly taking a whole bunch of heavy stuff from this side of the newer side of the building and putting it in the older side of the building, which would change loads and stuff. We're pretty much using that building the way the original building, the way it is being used now. So the thought is that we'd be fine. I don't know how many people have ever lived in an 85-year-old house, but you don't ever wanna open up what's behind the wall, right? Because you don't know what's there, and it could be perfectly fine, and I'm hoping that it is, I'm, you know.
Well, I
Sure
have-
that it is,
I
but
have
you wanna
great
know
hopes
that.
for But I do think that's one of the things that we have to, and I think it would be prudent for us to have that to present to Laura as well as part and parcel of this January 6th, to have it, say, here, it's done. And then in turn, we can utilize it for any grant, you know, the grant that we know of, and perhaps another grant will ask for the
And
same
if we
thing.
get it in time, if we get it in the next couple months.
Or we could at least say it's in process.
Right, we'd also be able to supply it to the architect to see if they see anything, okay, we can tweak now in the plans
Right.
without getting too far out of whack.
And if there's any kind of costs,
Right, they can adjust
you know, they can
accordingly.
adjust.
I mean, cause right now, I mean, there are like lumber costs have really dropped significantly in the last 6 months. So there are some costs that are kind of in flux, but also labor costs are up. So, you know, it's still maybe a wash, but you know, you still could have a lower number in
Depends on the
January.
material and the service.
Right.
I know that copper is something you don't even want to look at right now.
PVC.
So Lisa, if you get me the form for whatever the structural, yeah. And that way I can at least push that out to some of the couple of.
It's like a paragraph on,
And that's fine, just so they have an idea, this is what we need.
Sure.
And if we get a couple different levels of scopes, we can look at those, but
I'll do that tomorrow.
that's fine, that's great. Yeah, like I said, and then I'll try and push that out to at least the
It
ones that
seemed
we
pretty
have.
straightforward. You know,
Yeah.
Not an engineer, but it,
There were two options. We.
Just two suggestions. One is, and I think I brought it up at a previous meeting, to really connect with our state legislators.
Bring them into the loop.
You never know what's available on the state level.
Well, the question then is, do you connect with them now or do we connect with them
They-
after January?
They wanted, when we talked to them before, it seemed like they wanted.
Pricing.
Yeah.
they wanted to
know
see the
cost.
plan.
They wanted something basically by what we're gonna give Lark.
And then you don't, once again, you don't get the answer if you apply for one until long after you want to.
You know,
They can only.
As far as
Yeah.
the library giving Lark the information, would you want the consultant and or architect or just architect represented at a meeting for
For Lark.
questions from this body?
I think
Or
we had
can that
discussed,
wait for the council?
well, we had discussed having them available during the council presentation
Yes.
too.
Yeah,
and
they
yes,
would- they would do
Yeah,
the
they're
presentation.
aware of that.
Prior to that.
I think we discussed having both.
Yeah, I thought that was.
I don't think it would hurt, and you may
Mhm.
want to invite, you know, Gary, Kate, Matt, Lesser to a meeting and do the presentation.
Do the dry run
them,
presentation
yeah.
for council. If they can't make it to that one, then those representatives could go to the presentation if they're
Right.
available.
I just think, you know, it's not gonna hurt to get their input and get their brains working in terms of possible funding that
Well, and
might be available.
That's
And
why I
that
think
would be an
it's-
invitation from the library or from Lark?
I think from Lark.
This is Lark's meeting that it would
Yeah.
occur at.
The other suggestion, Dave and I have done the tour, but there are other counselors who have not been able to, who were not, I think Gail was part of the tour that we did, maybe.
Yes.
I think John had a tour, the mayor had a tour.
Did he have, I know he wanted to go over there.
You could ask. He didn't go with Karen or whatever, he talked about it.
So the rest of the council needs to.
Well, Tim has worked in the bowels of the library, so I know he knows
Yeah.
everything. The Mayor didn't come for a tour?
Well, who would have done it?
He's been
Karen might
he's
have
been
done, I don't
planning
know if
it,
Karen did it when you were, no, she did.
No, I don't think she
The new
did.
board members, okay.
but anyway, we've got counselors that want a tour and haven't had the opportunity yet, so maybe we can work on that. I don't mind.
So what's stopping them from having that? Have they,
An invitation?
are they looking for an invitation?
Just
Is
not,
it-
it's
is it their schedules? Is it-
it's setting a day and a time,
okay.
Probably just scheduling and.
And then,
because we all have various boards and commissions, you know, that we have to.
right, and I'm also thinking
wouldn't
there's,
stop.
there's rules in terms of, you know, if we had the whole town council come through, then that's a special meeting and
Yeah,
it's
but-
open to the public.
That
This
wouldn't
would
apply.
be
Others have already been through.
2, 3, it would be 4 people. Well, 5 because I don't think Mitch is ever, well,
Right,
Mitch knows it.
It would be if we
Like,
had a resort, but then it could be a happenstance meeting.
Yeah,
Or you could just.
Well,
do
that's what
it-
I'm saying. I don't wanna, I don't,
yeah.
I don't wanna step in anything by
Maybe 2
being
people are
naive,
available.
but.
For example, Kathy is usually available during the day. You know, and AJ. So they might be able, it might be better for them, or even John. And then, you know, Mitch and Matt may be able to come. for the
And
evening.
I would ask, just so that it's easier on the staff, that we're not doing one by one by one by one. If it's possible to
I
get
don't
a
wanna do
couple,
that.
to
Yeah.
come through together, that would be
I think
easier
if you
on
just
staff.
two small groups to avoid a quorum and just call it a
Yep.
day, I think
Yeah.
you'll be fine. Especially since, you know, some of them have already been, so it's gonna be a smaller.
Well, some
group.
are intimately
Several times.
knowledgeable of the library. No, some are intimately,
Have you been to the
you know,
library?
knowledgeable of
Many
what's
different
going on, but there are
incarnations of-
others,
Lack of.
you know,
source.
that go in and check out a book and leave. You know, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes.
Would they ever consider well, I guess you want them to see busy, but even a Saturday morning? Then you can take them around without, last time,
Without
it
a
was
lot of
like
patrons.
meeting rooms were all in use, we couldn't go in.
Yeah,
See, and I think it's better for them to see
No,
it
I
when
know that the opposite would
it's
be.
so busy and
So we'll schedule it on a
and
huge.
When everybody's
program day.
crammed into the back.
Yeah.
room.
Yeah, sit down and
Parking.
Thursday night in
Just
the
before
summer.
Winterfest, when you can't get in your office. I can work on that. Cause I think I mean, Tim probably doesn't need to
No.
do
I
a
don't
tour,
think so.
but there would be
No, but I
Mitch,
still think it should
John.
be offered, so it doesn't look like it's
Oh, yeah,
one side or the other.
absolutely.
Just because one side has more new people or people that
Yeah,
have not seen behind the scenes, you know, they haven't done the underground Disney tour yet or whatever we wanna call it. You know, and then some others have,
Well,
I've
also
certainly seen
too, just even, I'm a very visual person, so when I set, and I work with plans, so. For me, I like to see a locations, cause then I can overlay that in my head.
Yeah.
And if you haven't walked the bowels of that particular building, it's difficult to envision.
oh, yeah.
Vicky, do you have any thoughts on any of this conversation?
Nope, I'm listening, but I don't have anything that I can really add to it. I do think that the tours are very, it's very informative. Like, I think it really brings home the needs.
So Kim, you're gonna work on that with Lisa and schedule a couple of small
Yeah,
things or whatever.
I'll reach out to the counselors and find out who still needs the tour and what their availability is.
and
then
does
I
that
can-
include the mayor?
Absolutely.
It's not counseling.
And John has wanted to he's talked about things have, yeah, life happens, but yeah. And he's actually out of town at the moment, but he should be back in another day or two.
So if we're trying to fine tune this with the consultants, and we're working on getting any potential grant listings so that we can offer those up as being pursued at least. Getting the counselors in place. We'll have to get the board rallied to, once Lark gives them, this is the date, you must have it to us. The library then has to work backwards from a timeline for us to December to get to that point, to get all this information ready. And once the structural engineer aspect is in play, that will, it's just another bit of information to offer. What else do you think we should have in the proposal to Lark?
I think, proposal, the pictures are always nice. The architect's gonna talk about it. The timeline, I saw the timeline in there. The cost is gonna be the big thing. And again, like I mentioned before, you don't have to say anything, hard like this is what we're gonna do, but you probably at least want to address what's the transition plan while construction's going on. You're gonna go here, there, or whatever. At least to show that we're thinking about it and considering it. And the question may come up, is that cost included in this? Probably not. So that's gonna have to just be.
Our consultant did do a little research on what would be available. This was a couple of months ago in the town and, presented some options. Maybe circulation would be in one place and some, I don't know if we'd be able to find a space that could accommodate programming, circuit, I don't know.
Programming might be a little off, but you might be able to find a couple of satellite places for the books, and then is there gonna be any associated storage costs for stuff that's not gonna be able to be utilized in that time frame period, and where's that gonna go?
Well, there's places opening up all over the place. I mean, I had no idea about costs or whatever else, but just Bob's Stores is out July 14th. They're closing all their Connecticut stores.
The one on Kits Lane?
Yes,
Well,
all of them in Connecticut.
No, but I mean that
Yeah,
location.
that location,
But they're all
everything in Connecticut is going. So their July 14th is their last date. So there's a case of something that potentially could be
Mhm.
open, that is a
There's other-
relatively
there's
good
other
size,
dead
but there
space
are
in the
there are other venues in town that have the same type of situation. And I think it would come down to where we are in the process, when this actually occurs, that what would be open, because you can't, it won't necessarily be, Bob's could find another tenant in 3 months or something.
There's
But-
another vacant building
Who
within that
owns
one
that
too.
plaza?
Yes, there is.
Michael's used to
It
be.
just turned
Michael's
over,
is-
actually. It was just sold at an auction probably 2 months ago, 3 months ago.
Where was
So-
this?
The
Stop and
Kissling
Shop,
Plaza where Stop and Shop is, I suspect that plaza is gonna continue to degrade, unfortunately.
Really?
Stop and Shop, I think, is considering closing one of their locations in town.
They're
Oh,
trying
right,
to
like
consolidate
that's
too.
not shop.
for
And,
different
and I suspect once the new grocery store opens up at Meadow Commons, either Price Chopper or Stop and Shop, somebody's gonna fold. Suspect.
Is that where is the comments of 333, that one?
Yep, that one.
Yeah.
Is that one near Wooden Tap?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Not to back up just for a moment, I will contact Tim so he doesn't feel left out, not that he would,
Okay,
That's
well,
okay.
I'm,
unless you want to talk him to.
I was gonna
Just
send
with
the,
thinking across all our teams, I don't think it's a problem, but I think he should be.
oh, no, absolutely. I was just gonna shoot out an email to all the counselors.
Okay, all right.
And then, I mean, it can come from you and I, since we're
All
both on
right,
the,
go ahead, I just
We'll do
didn't
that.
want us to, I don't.
No,
want to
no,
be
no,
Offended,
but
but
I-
still, I think
no,
it's
even,
better to make it all.
oh, absolutely.
My,
Yep.
my question would be regarding the transition space. What exactly would you expect the library to put forward? What will we anticipate, or what? would
Yeah,
that
I
be
mean,
Lark's-
I think you just have to address, I just think you just don't gloss
That it's
over it.
being
You
explored.
just say, hey,
Yeah.
again, if we realize just gonna be a transition period and we're looking into
Transition
it.
costs and we're.
Yeah, and maybe at that time, council will have some great and wonderful
Yeah.
ideas that say, hey, you should just go here.
Right.
Or whatever.
There's also a couple libraries that are doing renovations now, so that you could talk to them about what they're doing for their temporary space, like what kind of services they're even offering.
Great idea.
One of the ones that stood out to me, and we've spoken about it before,
Meriden.
was down in Meriden, where they did the Old Navy store in the mall. And it was so successful, they actually have a satellite now in that section, because people just, it was so well received.
Bloomfield's in the middle of
Bloomfield,
one,
yeah.
and Manchester's going to be doing.
Mhm.
So we explore what they.
Did Middletown?
options.
They might be doing a renovation. I'm not like, Manchester's is gonna be a big one.
I
It's
think the
just-
program that we had some information about square footage that would be
Yeah, I
needed for the
think-
collection and for the other things in there. They talked about it to a certain extent. And then I think when you're ready, you need to take those estimates and try to apply them for,
Yeah.
what's available.
Well, Lisa, what is your experience then with knowing what other libraries have done? Do
It
they?
depends. It really, like Weathersfield, when they did it, they basically just had books. I mean, they stuck them in this little area that's
For the
all they really
town hall,
could
yeah.
do. So I think it depends. I don't know. I can call and ask, I could ask Marion, because she was involved. in
Yeah,
that whole thing.
Because I would think they can't have the whole
No,
collection
no, no,
wherever
I
you
think
go.
you have to whittle it down, and you also, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to find out.
Well, and that's another thing that the consultant has been very pointed about whittling our collection
have been,
anyway.
they were
you know.
working. But I think probably you're gonna want a more current collection, something like
Yeah.
bestsellers and that kind of thing, and children's books, certain, a certain amount of children's.
And the
books.
online traffic helps
Right.
our cause.
Right.
Right. It wouldn't have maybe 20 years ago, certainly, but today it's a little different.
You may, depending on where you possibly end up or whatever, I mean, it may even almost turn into like kind of a COVID situation. They could do stuff online and you could go back to wherever you're doing your storage and pull stuff
Right,
out that's not,
what something-
and pick and have it
Right,
still
for
pick
the
up and do that stuff.
And have the popular stuff out for people to browse. 'Cause people want to browse.
That's me in the mystery section.
So that's just my take on it, is that, we don't have to get into a whole big detailed plan of what it's gonna do and where it's
But
gonna
we have
go.
to
And
say
it doesn't
I
have
think
to
you
be
just have to say, hey, we realize this and, we're working on it because of, and maybe at the time, council, would have some funding available for part of that. I don't know. before the budget cycle, and I don't know how that, you know, works, or it comes out of your CIP or whatever that, you
Or
know,
we'd have to request it.
yeah,
Comes out of the Cub Scout budget.
however
They're the
it
ones that
works.
move our books.
Yeah, I think just on that respect, just talk about that. So, you know, have the presentation, like if we get it on the 6th of January, we could have it presented to us that week before council, or if council can't do us till the end of the month, then we have a little more time in there, a little latitude to line up some people to attend at least the dry run presentation.
Right.
And, you know, build some support there, and then do it at council level. And then.
When do you
Well, that-
start budget? March?
Yeah, it depends on when the town gets things together. It's varied depending upon the town
So we're
manager,
always due like
so on.
first week of, right after New Year's is
Right,
when
so
we have to
yeah.
present.
I know it's
Yeah.
usually December that each department is asked to.
Right.
Usually it used to be
Final thing.
November, but now it's December.
So like the 1st of January, you have to have your numbers in, but that gives finance some time to play around
Usually
with
they
it.
by the end.
That just goes, I think that's just what goes to town manager, right?
Right, and then.
Yeah, and then
you
then,
have your little meeting usually by the end of January, and then they
The
start.
departmental
putting it
meeting,
all
you mean?
together.
But
yeah,
the
so the
council
council,
doesn't get
council doesn't
any
do that.
No.
It's March when the department heads give their presentations to council, or all the department budgets are reviewed with council.
Yeah,
So when would the council meetings be in January of 2025?
Second,
The
fourth
second and fourth
Tuesdays.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
At 7.
So that's the 14th and the
14th.
28th.
Yeah.
So that's when Mark would ideally be presenting to town council.
So if we
with
get everything to look by
backup
the
from-
6th, that gives us potentially a week or 3 weeks to have our dry run.
Yeah.
Check advisors grant for some transitions.
So would we say January 9th, because we've been meeting on Thursdays? Today Thursday, what the hell day is today? Well, there's-
Tuesday.
Yeah, but there is no Thursday. Today was let's find a day to meet
Yeah, today
day.
was a fluke day.
Yeah.
Thursdays are really hard for me, Kim and Dave. Because
Okay,
we
so
have
Thursdays
two-
would be a bad day
at
then.
least one building committee will still be in
Right.
session on Thursdays going forward.
Well,
I'm pretty flexible, you know, except for.
Depends on the day of month,
Mondays
I
are
mean.
not bad for me.
I could do the first Monday, but then my second and thirds are.
Second Monday is. the
And we may not
library.
need
Yeah.
to meet as often,
As
you know,
frequently, right.
right now, I mean, we'll try and meet again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but, you know, once they reach out to the structural, just to have some discussions about that. Because we're kind of throwing everything over the library committee now.
And we're gonna have to have
Wants to be kept
special.
informed where we're at. I mean, you don't wanna hit January 6th and we say, oops, sorry.
Yeah, we can't get it to you.
You know,
Don't you think, for the summer, one anyway?
Yes, but again, I just feel like we keep saying we need to have all our ducks in the row, but we're not naming our ducks. So I've got a lot of big plans, right? Well, we need this, we need this, we need this, and we need
We've
this.
got our ducks, the finished presentation, so we need to reach
To
out.
what, where, what is that? Yeah, so
So we
if
need
that-
to
if
make sure
that's all-
that the architect and the consultant have their.
No, we need the presentation.
It's in our hands now because they gave us what we asked them for the last time around 100 times. And then, you know, we had the meeting where people gave their opinion. So, you know, we still have some questions about who's doing what on the board.
right, and what is the board putting together to make sure that we meet the January dates? So this is my fear. We've been through this cycle so many times, and now that we've pushed out for the referendum of 2025, I don't want to lose some of the momentum. We've done this so that we have more time, but every time we've done something so that we
Well,
have
my
more
concern
time
was-
because we're not quite ready yet, we lose ground and somehow we end up being, you know,
What
further
is the-
behind.
We have to be ready for January 6th, as I see it.
No, we have to be ready for the December meeting, because the
Well,
December
the
meeting.
but I mean,
But what
the
I'm saying. is
finished
it-
product
Finished product
for
is.
presentation here.
Is December board meeting for the library. So what we're talking about is, I think, facilities on library has to set a schedule that in September, we're going to sit down and, or, you know, September is the next official meeting. Between now and then, we map out, still working with making sure that the consultants are finalizing what's been said in this last meeting. We get the structural engineer going for the grant aspect. We pursue with Sonia that
Potential
the
grants.
potential grants. And so I would look at it in September at a facilities meeting, because this will go back to facilities now. And is to turn around and say, all right, where are we at for all of these items? The transition aspect is something we'll have to start exploring, but I don't know how deeply we can go into that. And the other thing then would be to then set a goal, say for like the October meeting, because September is our business meeting, our annual meeting. For the October meeting, to make that, whether it's a separate meeting for the board or it's our full regular meeting, and we sit down and say, okay, now we've got October till December, we've got at least 2 months to hammer down all the details that haven't come into play by September. That would be the way I would view
But
it.
you're not gonna do any work in the summer though?
No, that's what I'm saying. Now we should be working on it. Facilities should be working on this.
A special board meeting.
And who's gonna get this information to facilities?
That she's facilities
Okay,
chair.
that's fine, great,
Today.
okay, that's fine.
You are facility chair until the annual
September.
meeting,
Yeah.
even October, because October is when the new people are
So
are
this,
nominated.
by
So everybody's in
glancing,
there. I'm the president now. I may not be after the
Right.
annual meeting, because that's when we vote in new members.
I'm like Leanne, I'm a visual person, and I would love to see, and I don't know who would put it together, an actual timeline.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So,
I
I mean,
think,
something physical and something that we have and we can continue to refer to. So that, I mean, if we don't stay on track, we don't stay on track, but this will help. And it'll, for me, I like having something on paper, and I like to have something that I can continue
Well,
to look at. And we can kind of check off
from our
the
discussions
boxes.
and be part of the minutes.
well,
is there-
we
is
have a
there a-
timeline here at Lark. We can't set a timeline for Lark for the library. All we can do is tell the library we need to buy the 6th.
And what are the things that Lark needs by the 6th? And that's what I really,
And well.
Wanna
like,
have
I just
enumerated.
went through them, but I think what we can't do is wait till September. I said we need to have a facilities or a special board meeting to address this.
Yes.
And have people.
We know
go
that.
on that.
I mean,
I don't think,
looking through this presentation a little bit, it looks fairly complete to me. It's got the cost estimate, it's got your timeline of construction, it's talking about the area of the building and, some other funding sources in here, which is kind of what we talked about. It's got a lot of good pictures. I don't know what else the facilities committee wants to tweak on here, if there's kind of certain kind of changes they're looking to do for them to finalize it, or are you guys pretty much good with this, what they've done?
the last board meeting we had, there were a couple of people who wanted to get together to tweak that, to give back to the,
Well, that's a board issue. I think you
Yeah,
have to take
but
that up with a vote. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But
As Diane keeps saying, this is conceptual, it will change, it's somewhat fluid. To have, every single.
but to
thing
Eric's
on
point,
there is-
and to what I think Lark is talking about is you have specific things that you have to have some kind of an answer to. So the board in these special meetings needs to have that list so that they can go forth and work on those answers. Many of those answers could be in that proposal. Other answers may be things that we work with Sonia and the architect and Leslie on to help beef up or get things going in that area, up to and including the structural engineer. Who do we name? We're gonna go in January, we're gonna say the state of Connecticut grant opens up at this point. You can apply in June, but in order to apply, you have to have somebody on your board that has gone through the class. We've named so-and-so to go through or to refresh their, accreditation the fact that you have to take a class before you can apply for a thing is,
and it
It's
doesn't
very
have to be
true.
the whole board.
No,
No, it just has to be
I've done
one
it a
person.
couple of times.
this has to be one person. But I would think that that would be something that we need to identify on the board that goes through that says that we have this, so that it's not somebody calling around on Wednesday saying, hey, there's a class Friday, can you take it? because we need somebody to take it, right? So and that's why I keep saying, and I know you guys have it all written down, so that's great. We'll call the special meeting, you'll have your list and you'll have all your dates and you'll have everything else. That's what I'm trying to pin down here right now, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic here. We keep running through this, and I don't feel that I have my list with my agenda, with my outline that says, these are the 10 things I need to have nailed down by our December meeting, so we can approve that that's what we're gonna put through in January. And I think we better really know in October, November, when we're talking about that. And it doesn't have to be a board meeting. It can be a facility meeting. It should be a facility meeting with reporting to the boards on those days, what's going on. And, you know, as president, sometimes I get a little fierce in those meetings. And my thing is, if they're not attending these special meetings or the other meetings that we've opened up to other interested people, then they can't stop it, you know, going on. If they're interested in this and going through and helping with it, then they need to do that.
Well, I agree with you, but I think at this point, if we take these 4 or 5 items that we've got listed here, which we go back to when we focus on that with the facilities, I think it's a starting point. But what I would
But
suggest from,
facilities doesn't make the final
No,
decision.
no,
It
no,
still
but-
goes to the
but what I
board.
would suggest is that perhaps we have a date where, I don't know when Lark wants to meet again, but if Lark were to meet in September, a couple weeks after the board has convened and the facilities committee has had some meetings, we could tell you where we're at. And perhaps Lark could say, we still need this. We could give you an outline. Would that work?
I mean, I think.
I mean, I don't wanna change the process, but I'm thinking if we could have your guidance to say, listen, you should beef this up, or you're okay here, this should be satisfactory, you know, et cetera, as a whole, as this body saying they're comfortable in submitting that information, this is complete, but we need to work on this.
When is the board meeting in September?
9/9.
Can we meet on the 12th, which is the Thursday of that week?
And they can present everything to us, or whatever they have,
Well,
like
we
I
have
said,
such-
some kind of preliminary submittal. So we
It
can
would
review.
tell us where we're at. We could at least give an interim report as to where we stand on all these items. But in the meantime, the board goes back
Yes,
under
it is.
facilities. And we do, by then, hopefully, we have the concept presentation set with the consultants. We have, the grants.
Information.
Information,
Yes.
the structural engineer, you know, hopefully in the pipeline to get done, if we haven't gotten it done already. And exploration of transition space. And that would give Lisa and company a little bit of time to wrap their heads around what our own collection is, but it would also give us as a board time to pursue with other libraries what they did, so we could have a few more concepts as throwing them out, because that's a big question mark that even if we bring it to Lark and Lark brings it to the council, things shift in the course of time before it would ever go into play. But we could at least have that, you know, some ideas put into place. That is fairly concise. It's getting pinned down as to the dollars and cents, the conceptual ideas. I think one of the things that we have to do as a board is to come back and I know we have a couple of members who believe that we should ask for the moon and the stars with the idea that we'll get the moon. But I think it's time to bring a few folks into reality. We need to address what we would like and what we need. And then it goes to Lark, and then we have the ability as Lark to tweak it. But I don't, that's just my thoughts.
I'm so sorry. Kim and Dave and I actually have another meeting downstairs that started about 4 minutes ago.
Okay.
So we're gonna head out.
Parting comment that it seems with everything it comes down, we need timelines, charts, bullet points. So at least we know where we're going, where the library is going, and so that Kim and I, and some others can keep track of what's going on where, so we can visualize and make a decision.
Kim and you, it's me, quite frankly, I don't know.
And
And if we
can
leave here
we-
and they say,
can
okay,
we
Diane,
get,
call
a
a special
copy
meeting, I'm like,
of
what's my
the,
agenda?
You're right.
Well, I had asked you about that. Can you send around an email copy of this?
I don't have
So
it,
that I-
but.
No, that was what was submitted to the library board. I just brought that tonight.
Yeah, that's
to
fine.
give
Yeah,
you a
yeah.
context. It's the most
So
recent.
somebody has
Right.
it electronically, so if you- yeah, if you could, if
So
somebody
I-
could send it around, that would be great.
Well, and then you have a little bit better idea looking at it,
I
what
mean,
questions we haven't
yeah.
answered.
Exactly.
Chair,
Okay.
I made her the host, I mean.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go, but this will stay on the meeting.
Thank you.
It's 1:05 AM here, so
So you wanna pack it in?
yeah. I want to pack it in. I'm happy to read any minutes of anything that I miss or anything like that, but
Okay.
I gotta go.
Should we adjourn this meeting and then should you guys just quickly write down what you want, do library business,